Thanks, everyone. What an honor it is to be here today. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. I just want to say thank you so much to both Diane and Abhijit for being two outstanding deputy leaders to help lead our party. And I want to say to the incredible, diverse group of fantastic candidates all across this province, I'm looking forward to electing more Green MPPs to join me at Queen's Park. It is now or never. It is now or never to address the climate crisis. And we can do it in a way that addresses the cost of living concerns that so many people in this province have right now. We can do it in a way that ensures that our children and our grandchildren, our nieces and nephews have a livable, stable climate and a prosperous economy with strong public services, because we make the investments now to fix the foundation of this province, to fix the cracks that will reveal during the pandemic, and to fix it with new solutions to old problems. And that's why I'm so proud today to put forward our platform, new solutions to old problems, to address the concerns that the people of this province have, and to build the Ontario you want. It's a fully costed platform with a clear-eyed pathway to building a caring, connected province that is climate ready, that delivers the solutions to old problems that the old line parties simply have failed to fix. And so we are here today to put forward a comprehensive set of solutions that have 6 main priorities. The first, homes before highways. We will build 1.5 million homes in this province without paving over the farmland that feeds us or the wetlands that protect us from flooding and clean our drinking water. We will end rampant speculation in the housing market so first-time home buyers have a fighting chance to have a home that they can own in the community they love that's close to where they work. And we will invest $1 billion a year to build 182,000 deeply affordable community rental homes in this province so that everyone in Ontario has an affordable place to call home. Our second priority is a firm commitment that mental health is health. And that we have, oh yeah, go ahead, please. That everything is not okay in the province of Ontario right now. And that's why our $6.5 billion plan will expand mental health services to make them, more of them available under OHIP, so you can afford the comprehensive care that you need and deserve. We have a firm commitment to providing the funding necessary to reduce youth wait times to access mental health services to less than 30 days. It is simply unacceptable in this province that 28,000 young people are waiting on average 18 months, sometimes as long as 2.5 years, to receive the care they need and deserve. And we will make a commitment to treat the drug poisoning crisis as the public health emergency it is, not as a criminal justice issue. Third, our bold plan to build and create a new climate economy will be steadfast. It begins by bringing in the province's first carbon budget, charting a year-by-year pathway to crush climate pollution in half by 2030 and to be real net zero by 2045. We will do it in a way that addresses the cost of living concerns that people have, first of all, by electrifying our transportation systems with a $12.4 billion plan to expand transit, to make our streets safe for walking and cycling, and to ensure that average folks can afford an electric vehicle or an electric bike to get around with low-cost, clean transportation. Our $17 billion plan to retrofit buildings in this province will help homeowners save money by saving energy, will help retrofit our co-ops and nonprofit and social housing spaces, will retrofit public buildings to make them energy efficient and reduce our carbon footprint and create 52,000 good-paying green jobs. Our fourth priority is to respect people and workers. For far too long in this province, we have forced people with disabilities to live in legislated poverty. That will come to an end under a Green government when we immediately double the rates of disability support payments to bring people with disabilities up to the low-income cutoff level. According to the Daily Bread Food Bank, poverty costs this province $33 billion a year. But more importantly, it costs people in lost lives. It costs people in crushing levels of not living lives of dignity. And that's what we are out to fix. We are also going to invest in the workers who care for us. We will repeal the legislation that caps wages for frontline healthcare workers, and we will ensure that personal support workers have a minimum wage of at least $25 an hour, and early childhood educators will also have a wage of a minimum of $25 an hour because the people who care for us to get paid for it. If there's anything we learned during this pandemic, that the nurses who are the backbone of our healthcare system are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated by the Ford government, and we will hire 33,000 nurses to work in our hospitals, in our long-term care homes, and in our community systems of care to ensure that people have access to the care they need and deserve in the communities they live.
Absolutely.
Number 5, we will reinvest in healthcare and education, making a firm commitment to increasing home care by 20% so our elders can age in place in the homes they love, in the communities they love, with the people they love. We will ensure there is no mandatory e-learning in this province so students can learn in school. And we will address the repair backlog in our schools by ensuring they have proper ventilation, are in energy efficient buildings, and have good high quality indoor air quality so our students have the right spaces to learn and thrive. And after years of underinvestment in our post-secondary institutions, we will make the investments necessary so our colleges and universities regain their world-class status, having the proper public funding for them to do the research we need to educate our future populations and ensure we develop the technologies and innovations we need to be the global leaders in the new climate economy. Ensuring that we reverse Doug Ford's cuts to OSAP and not only restore those, but transfer that money from being loans to grants, so young people don't graduate with crushing levels of debt. And finally, our sixth priority is to protect nature, to protect the places we love in this province, to protect the farmland that feeds us permanently, to protect the wetlands that clean our drinking water and protect us from flooding permanently, to ensure by the end of this decade, 30% of Ontario's natural spaces are protected as the nature they are. And we will do this in the true spirit of reconciliation, working hand in hand with Indigenous people, with a $1 billion investment in Indigenous-led climate solutions. And finally, we have to do it in partnership with our municipalities. The inaction of the old line parties in addressing the climate crisis means that some climate extreme weather events are already baked in. And we know that we have to adapt, and we need to make sure we make the investments so that our infrastructure and our buildings and our communities are climate resilient. And that's why we've put forward a plan of allocating $2 billion a year to work with municipalities to build climate resilient infrastructure. This platform meets the moment that we are in, the now or never moment to address the climate crisis and ensure we set our children and grandchildren and ourselves up for future prosperity. I want to close by saying, I'm anticipating one of the questions will be, are you overly ambitious with a $65 billion climate plan? And I want to say that it's not overly ambitious to ensure that our children have a livable future and a stable climate. It's not overly ambitious to say that we want Ontario to be the global leader in the new climate economy, creating new career and better job opportunities for people. It's not overly ambitious to say that we're going to reinvest in the public institutions that are so vital to the vibrancy and vitality of our communities. That's what Ontario needs in this moment. That's the Ontario that I know you want. And Ontario Greens are ready to provide the leadership to deliver the future you want. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a team. It's a team. It's an amazing team. Thank you all so much. Happy to take questions from the media.
Test, 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 test. Okay, thank you. We'll now go to questions from the media, starting with in-floor. So if you can just come over here to the mic, and then we'll go to Zoom questions after. If you can just say your name and publication. Thank you.
Hi, Mike. Émilie Pelletier with Le Droit newspaper. You were just bragging about the diversity of your candidates, and I was wondering, so you've lost a candidate yesterday in Davenport. Can you give us a little bit more insight on what happened and your involvement in this situation?
Yeah, I've been unequivocal and unapologetic in denouncing the rising levels of anti-Semitism we see in the province of Ontario, and we see across the country. And I will be unequivocal in condemning Islamophobia, anti-black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Semitism, transphobia, and homophobia. It's exactly why I've been such a strong supporter of the Our London Family Act and other legislative actions to address the rise of hate in this province. And I will not back down from my stance to firmly condemn anti-Semitism in the province of Ontario. And if there is a candidate running for us that doesn't agree with my strong stance against anti-Semitism, then we will politely and respectfully part ways.
But this candidate thinks that you weren't strong enough in your stance in denouncing Islamophobia. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. I've been a steadfast and strong supporter of taking the condemnation of Islamophobia, particularly the hateful and heinous act that happened in London last summer, where a family walking down the street were run over. And I have been steadfast in my commitment to turn those words into action, which is why I've been working so hard at Queen's Park to have the Our London Family Act passed, to put legislative action in place to combat Islamophobia. It's why I've worked so hard with the Muslim Society of Guelph and my own community to host Building Bridges events, to bring people of all races and religions and backgrounds together, because we know Ontario is stronger when we're united than when we're divided.
Hi, Mike. Holly Mackenzie Cedar with Canadian Press. Looking at the costing, I didn't see a path to balance in the up to 2026.
Yes.
What year, what date are you targeting for that?
Yeah, so we decided to cost the platform through the next mandate of our government. We see, as you can see from our bottom line numbers, that we're on a path to balance. We believe it will be possible to achieve a balanced budget, providing there isn't any unforeseen events like a global pandemic that's unexpected, within a year or two outside of the next mandate. I think our plan shows how we can make the investments we need to make in addressing the climate crisis, expanding mental health services, ensuring that we build affordable communities so everyone has a place to live, and that we reinvest in our vital public institutions while at the same time charting a path to balance. And I'll be honest with folks, we raised some taxes in this budget. But let's be clear. Most of the relief that Doug Ford has brought forward, his license sticker gimmick being the prime example, disproportionately benefits wealthy households. The election gimmick the previous Liberal government brought in to address the mistakes they made in our electricity system and rising electricity prices disproportionately benefited wealthy households. That gimmick has actually risen to be a $6.9 billion program. It's actually, we're the only jurisdiction in North America to directly subsidize electricity prices. It's become one of the biggest line items in the Ontario budget. We're rebalancing the gross inequality that's happening in our society right now by asking the wealthiest to pay a bit more and rebalancing that with financial supports for the most vulnerable in our communities, because we know that that's the Ontario we are. We have a heart. We are a caring province, and this budget delivers on that.
Yeah, I'm wondering as well about the part of your platform about the First Nations Water Authority. Like, what is a realistic timeline to get that set up? And could you just explain kind of the importance of that proposal for kind of dealing with the boil water advisory issue?
Yeah, so I, like many Ontarians, I believe, and especially Indigenous peoples, are sick and tired of the jurisdictional ping pong that exists between the province and the federal government when it comes to eliminating boil water advisories in this province. So we want to accelerate the province stepping in if the federal government is not going to, and ensuring that all communities in Ontario have access to clean drinking water. And if we have to, we'll send a bill to the federal government to cover the actions we're taking. But I also want to say that we have a responsibility to ensure that we respect Indigenous sovereignty when it comes to things like resource extraction and access to clean drinking water. And our platform also delivers on that as well.
Rudy Chaban, ONFR Plus TFO. What is your plan exactly for Francophone community, especially for l'Université de Sudbury and the French Language Commissioner?
So, mon français n'est pas très bon, so I'll reply in English, which is a perfect example of why we need better French language services in Ontario. First of all, we make a firm commitment to restoring the French Language Services Commissioner. And if I could just do a quick aside to your question, I'll get back to the rest of it. I also think we need to restore the Environmental Commissioner of Ontario's office. And I just want to say that Doug Ford fired the wrong person. And I'm asking everyone in University Rosedale to send the Environmental Commissioner, the last Environmental Commissioner of Ontario, back to Queen's Park as the MPP for University Rosedale. No, I'm not done. I'm not done with his question yet, though. That was an aside. So we've made a commitment to have the University de Sudbury be a Northern Francophone university. We think what happened with Laurentian is completely unacceptable, and the fact that so many French language educational programs have been eliminated through the whole bankruptcy protection process shows that we need a university in the north to serve Francophones, that is run by Francophones, to ensure access to French language post-secondary education. We also have made a commitment to maintaining funding to the University of Toronto as well, to make sure we have French language post-secondary education in the South as well, and a commitment to ensuring that all public services delivered in the province of Ontario are available in French, and also as the province looks to review the French Language Services Act, that the Francophone community in Ontario is actively involved in that process. So any amendments and revisions are led by Francophones in Ontario.
Clara Pasica, CBC. Can you speak a little bit about your decision to launch here in downtown Toronto? I mean, you don't have any seats in the Toronto area. You weren't second place in any of the seats in the Toronto area last election. Can you just speak about that choice today?
Yeah, there are two components to that choice. One, we have two amazing deputy leaders who are running for ridings here in Toronto, Abhijit Manet in Beaches East York, and Diane Sachs right here in University Rosedale, where we're located. I think people in Toronto have a real opportunity in this election to send two climate champions to Queen's Park. You know, there's a lot of conversation in this election that how do we stop Doug Ford? And of course, we don't want Doug Ford to be the next Premier of Ontario, given his atrocious environmental record especially. And in these two ridings, you have an opportunity to send two MPPs to Queen's Park who will provide new solutions to old problems and who will actually have the vision and the courage to stand up and fight for a future that ensures Ontario is climate ready. We're ready for the new climate economy, and we do what we have to do and what we must do to help ensure a livable future for the young folks that are here today. Secondly, oh, go ahead, please. Secondly, we chose the Center for Social Innovation because we recognize that the innovation economy, and especially social innovation, will play a vital role in building climate-ready communities and ensuring the vitality and vibrancy of our communities, making the kinds of investments and ensuring that we build communities where people can live, work, play, and shop locally, where they're not forced to be part of long, expensive, soul-crushing commutes. You know, that might be the vision that Doug Ford has. That's not the vision Ontario Greens have, and we recognize the role that innovation and community will play in building the Ontario you want.
My next question is on housing. You mentioned new solutions to old problems. So here in Toronto, you know, there is only so much land left. That's been a problem, the housing, for a long time. Can you speak a little bit specifically about how your solution specifically addresses areas like Toronto?
Yeah, thank you for that. So first of all, we have to drive rampant speculation out of the housing market. Homes should be for people, not speculators. So I'm proud to say that we're the first and only party that's called for a multiple home speculation tax that says if you buy a third home or more, you're going to pay a tax on it, because we have to stop these corporations who are buying up hundreds of homes in some cases. We have to stop wealthy speculators who are driving particularly first-time home buyers out of the marketplace, especially in hot markets like Toronto. In addition to that, we do support a vacant homes tax as well, because we know, especially in the condo market, but also in the single-family home market, there are a number of spaces, homes that are literally being purchased and left empty that could be homes for people. So the second key point is that we have to end exclusionary zoning that limits the options that people have. You know, a year ago when we released our housing affordability strategy, the Toronto Star called it a masterclass plan in delivering the solutions Ontarians need. And we've seen other parties follow our lead, which I would argue is a good reason we need more Greens at Queen's Park. But one of the, I think, key points that was raised when they said that is we have the courage to say that as of right, you should be able to build duplexes and triplexes and quadplexes in single-family neighborhoods in this province. That people should have more housing choices, such as laneway housing, secondary suites, basement apartments, tiny homes, and other ways to expand supply that's actually affordable for people in the communities they love. Yep, go ahead. Yeah, that's fine. We're also calling for pre-zoning along transit corridors to build that missing middle, those multi-residential, particularly purpose-built rentals that will provide that missing middle to go along with the general density we're proposing for single-family home neighborhoods. And then finally, government has to get involved in housing again. In the mid-1990s, both the federal and provincial governments stopped supporting co-op, nonprofit, and community-based, deeply affordable housing. And we've made a firm financial commitment to build 100,000 community affordable rental homes in this province, with an additional commitment of 60,000 permanent supportive housing spaces with wraparound mental health and other addiction support, so we can eliminate homelessness in Ontario. And on top of that, 22,000 Indigenous-led, Indigenous delivered housing, deeply affordable housing solutions, because we know that a disproportionate number of the unhoused population in our communities, north and south and across the province, are Indigenous peoples, and we owe it to Indigenous peoples to provide the housing they need and deserve. We know that every $10 invested in permanent supportive housing saves the government $21 in other service costs, health services, emergency services, criminal justice, social services. To me, that's an investment worth making, and I was so pleased when I met recently with the Ontario big city mayors, including Mayor Tory right here in Toronto, that our commitment to permanent supportive housing, I think, was one of the areas where we all most profoundly agreed that the province has to step up to the table with the funding needed to address the housing crisis that so many communities across this province are facing.
Jack Cowan with Queen's Park Briefing. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the process of trying to create 15-minute communities in places that have been designed since their beginnings around cars, like places where it's a 2-minute drive to Tim's but a 45-minute walk.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I probably should have Diane come up and answer it because she's more of an expert in this one than I am, but I will do it. First of all, we have to create more density in those neighborhoods, and that's one of the reasons that it's so important to allow duplexes and triplexes and quadplexes. It's so that we have the density necessary to support small businesses to be able to open up in mixed-use communities, particularly in suburban regions of the Greater Toronto Hamilton area. Secondly, we have to make sure we make the right investments in road infrastructure to make those streets safe for people-powered transportation, walking, cycling, e-bikes, scooters, wheeled mobility devices, etc. We also have to lower the speeds on suburban roadways. I mean, the number of people, particularly elders, who are dying in traffic crashes, let's not call them accidents, requires us to lower speeds, particularly on those suburban arterial roads. And then we need to provide the business supports to help small businesses to be able to open so we start building those more mixed-use communities. And I'll close by saying that we absolutely need to increase transit access for people, especially in suburban areas. And the best, most cost-effective way to do that is through electrified buses. And so that's why we've made a firm commitment to ramping up the number of electrified buses for intercity transit, but also intra-city connections. We have to start connecting our communities with direct transit that's affordable, reliable, and electrified, and buses is the fastest way to do that.
And just one more question on the Davenport candidate. These are sort of the same issues that really tore apart the federal party. You've said in the past that it's different, Ontario Party is separate, but are you worried that these issues are bleeding into your party and could cause the same sort of thing?
I'm not worried about that because I know the Ontario Green Party is united. I know that we're working together and that we are committed. This party is committed, and I think you see it in the diversity of our candidates. We already have a candidate who's put forward their name to run in Davenport for us, and as soon as Elections Ontario certifies that candidate, we'll let all of you in the media know. But we have over 75% of our candidates come from represent equity deserving groups. Around 56% of our candidates identify as women or non-binary. Almost 25% of our candidates would identify themselves as being from a racialized community. And all of those candidates are united, rowing in the same direction. And I've spoken to the senior leadership in our party, and I know that I have their backing and their support for my steadfast commitment to speaking out against anti-Semitism. We will not tolerate hate in this province. And the Ontario Greens will go beyond denouncing it. We will support legislative action to address anti-Semitism, anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism, Islamophobia, homophobia, transphobia, with legislative action to ensure that we protect everyone in this province.
Hi, Mike. I just have one more. I mean, it would be remarkable if your party went from one seat to forming the government. But I'm just wondering what you make of the NDP leader telling non-PC voters like not to split the vote and vote Green, and if you see what kind of benefits you see to a coalition type situation that might help get some of your ideas done, kind of working with other parties.
Well, first of all, I would say vote for the Ontario you want. And the Ontario Greens are leading that. I just want to over the last few weeks, we've seen the way in which the Ontario Greens have an outsized influence in this province. You know, we were the first to come out with a housing affordability strategy that again has been called a masterclass plan in delivering the solutions Ontarians need. And we've seen the other parties, and I believe the NDP has changed or amended their platform 2 or 3 times now to try to keep up with the ideas the Green Party are putting forward to deliver the solutions this province needs. When we announced that we would double ODSP rates to ensure that we end legislative poverty in this province, not only did the other 2 progressive parties say, oh, we'll do 20%, which by the way is less than the amount people received when Mike Harris was premier of this province, if you want to put that into perspective about how atrociously low social assistance rates are right now and how uninspiring the other parties' proposals are. But even Doug Ford, the person who said, you know, just get a job if you have a disability, is now saying the Conservatives will increase rates by, I think it's 5%, so, which is still atrociously low. But those are just 2 examples. I can give you more. I mean, when I came out as the first MPP at Queen's Park opposed to Highway 413, I remember a local mayor calling me up and saying, Mike, it's great that the Greens are so quick to come out against fast-tracking the environmental assessment process for Highway 413, but you're never going to get, you know, broad social support to do that. And now, almost, not all, but almost all the councils and regional councils along the Highway 413 route have come out against it. The other 2 opposition parties are now against it, though we got to get the Liberals to oppose the Holland Marsh Highway. Can we get a definitive answer from that on that one? And there's a whole citizens movement now that is saying stop the sprawl, that the Ontario Greens are leading. And so I say to voters, if you want green, vote green. And I'll end by just saying, Ontario Greens have always made a commitment, and this is a commitment we share with Greens across the country and around the world, and we've seen it in the way the BC Greens worked holding the balance of power, or they said the balance of responsibility in a minority government. We see it in the way the PEI Greens conduct themselves as the official opposition in a minority government in PEI. We will always work across party lines. We will always collaborate with other parties to put people before politics. So I'm just asking the voters of this province, you know, send a message to Doug Ford that he fired the wrong environment commissioner, and send Diane Sachs to Queen's Park. Let's send Matt Richter and Perry Salmuskoka to Queen's Park. I was just up there a couple days ago, and the campaign in Perry Salmuskoka feels like the campaign in Guelph in 2018. And I said this when I opened Abhijit Manet's office on election day. There is nobody in this party who's been a stronger advocate for raising social assistance rates and bringing people with disabilities out of poverty than Abhijit. Let's send him to Queen's Park. And I see all of these candidates here, and I'm not going to go through all your names because it'll take too long. But these are all amazing people who put people before politics, who have chosen the right road, not the easy road. The easy way to get elected is to run for one of the old line parties. But these folks have all decided, and they've made a commitment to doing politics differently, to offering new solutions to old problems, and they deserve your support and your vote.
That's everything from the floor, so we'll go to the Zoom line. Jess, if you can pull that up.
I believe Holly asked you this as it relates to setting out a deadline to perhaps balance the budget. Obviously, the Liberals also released their platform, I believe it was this week. They said that they would try and balance the budget by 2026 to 2027, but that if they can't invest enough money as they want to in programs such as education by that deadline, then they would be prepared to exceed that deadline. Are you concerned that, not giving voters any sort of firm deadline as to when the Ontario Greens will balance the budget may cause some hesitancy to vote in Green?
I don't think so, and thanks for that question, Wyatt, because I think Ontarians know right now that this is not the time for austerity. This is a time to invest in a climate-ready economy. This is the time to fix the cracks and the broken foundations of our health and education systems. This is the time to ensure that people are not forced to live in legislative poverty. This is the time to ensure that a whole generation of young people have an affordable place to call home. We have us on a pathway to balance. I mean, obviously, we likely could have gotten there within our first term of government if the pandemic hadn't put the province in such a deep fiscal hole. When we released our housing affordability strategy, it was fully costed. Everything we spent, we showed you exactly how we would pay for it, and that's reflected in our platform. When we released our climate plan, we showed you exactly what we would spend and how we would pay for it, and that's reflected in our platform. When we released our mental health strategy, we showed you exactly what we would spend money on and how we would pay for it, which, by the way, is mostly by reversing Doug Ford's license plate gimmick, which I'm the only MPP who voted against. Yeah. And then when we worked on the costing of our platform, we had to make a tough choice. And it's the kind of tough choices every government has to make. And it's probably the kind of tough choice that most people wouldn't hold the fourth party to. But we want to present a plan to show people we are ready to govern this province. And it's a responsible plan, it's a costed plan, and it shows the kinds of investments we need to fix the cracks in the foundations of this province, to build a caring, connected, climate-ready Ontario, and at the same time put Ontario on a path to a balanced budget that is very similar to the Conservative budget. So we're not an outlier in any way. We're just showing you how we can do it in a way in investing in the people that we love in this province and investing and ensuring that we address the climate crisis.
You have a follow-up? Yeah, and obviously you've been asked about this too, but you've had to drop your candidate in Davenport. The PC candidate for King Vaughan, Stephen Lecce, has had some issues recently with some stuff he's done in his past. There's been 3 Liberal candidates just in the past week that have been dropped as well. All of this has kind of raised questions as to the general vetting process for candidates. Do you think in any way that, that process should be stepped up, because it seems to be hurting some parties in different ways?
Yeah, so I appreciate that question, Wyatt. And so first of all, I have confidence in the vetting process of the Ontario Green Party. We have a complete firewall between the leader's office and the vetting process because we're a grassroots party. We're actually the only party that allows their constituency associations to fully 100% make the decision on whether to nominate a candidate or not. Even if you only have one candidate standing for nomination in the Ontario Green Party, members can still vote for none of the above. So even when I ran for my nomination, the members of the Guelph Constituency Association could have said none of the above, and I wouldn't have been the candidate for Guelph. Fortunately, they did not do that. But so I just want to say that our vetting and nomination process is very different from other parties. And second of all, I want to be very clear. We did not fire our candidate in Davenport. We did not ask that candidate to resign. That candidate chose to resign out of a disappointment with a unequivocal statement that I've made to denounce anti-Semitism in Ontario and across the country. And I will not back down from my commitment to combating anti-Semitism in this province.
Thank you. Next question comes from John McGrath from TVO.
Good morning, Mike. How much weight is there on the decriminalization of drugs in your overall sort of platform here, given that that's not really something that a provincial government can actually deliver on its own?
Yeah, thank you for that question, John Michael. And that's why we're very clear in the platform that we would work with the federal government to decriminalize substances in the province of Ontario. We already know that the province of British Columbia, and in particular Vancouver, is pushing the federal government on this issue as well. We believe Ontario should join in that effort because let's just be honest, the war on drugs hasn't worked. People are literally dying in our communities right now, and we have made a steadfast commitment to expanding harm reduction services, to expanding treatment services, and for treating substance use as a public health emergency and not as a criminal justice issue. That will take no action from the federal government. But on top of that, we want the federal government to be a partner with us in decriminalizing substances because we've seen how effective that has been in other jurisdictions. I particularly look at Portugal as a classic example of this, to not only significantly reducing drug poisoning deaths, but also significantly reducing substance use, period. We have to end the stigma. We have to make the supports, and one of the investments in supports, and one of the most important ones is our commitment to 60,000 permanent supportive housing spaces with wraparound mental health, addictions, and other supports. Because I can't tell you how many doctors and public health experts are saying that we need to start writing people with substance use challenges a prescription for housing, because that's what they need, is stable housing with wraparound supports to help them stabilize their lives. That's what the Ontario Greens will deliver.
Thank you. A reminder to please use the raise hand function if you have a question. Okay, next question comes from Alan Hale.
Hi, Mike. I saw that there was mention of working towards a universal basic income as like a future goal. Can we talk a little bit about what the plan for that is and how you would get to such a program?
Yeah, thanks for that, Alan. So first of all, We believe the first and most important step in delivering on a basic income in Ontario is to double social assistance rates, to bring people with disabilities up to and slightly above the low income cutoff level. That is where the biggest financial commitment to delivering a basic income will come from. The second, and by the way, we actually significantly increase the income allowance for people on social assistance, Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Supports, so they're not penalized in having supports clawed back when they exceed $200 a month in income. So the next step in delivering on a basic income is to dismantle the systems that require people on social assistance to go through the undignified process of having to put in applications for a multitude of benefits, to having to answer to caseworkers, and to just living in fear of that power imbalance. That will be the next step. And then to fully implement a basic income, we believe we need the federal government as a partner, because it should be a program that's rolled out across the country, and the Ontario Greens are charting a path forward of how that can be done with a substantial financial commitment to making it happen.
Rebalancing the healthcare funding formula to ensure better access in rural and remote areas. Can you tell me what that rebalancing looks like?
Yeah, so the funding formula, and I'll actually, when I finish with health, I'd like to talk about education a little bit as well. So right now, the funding formula doesn't fully take into account the unique needs that rural and remote healthcare providers have. And so as a result, we've seen the closure, particularly in some rural communities, of either hospitals or certain service, more commonly, certain services and procedures in rural communities, which then forces people to travel exceptionally long distances to receive the health care they need. So we believe the funding formula needs to be amended, and we'll certainly work with healthcare experts in designing that formula in a way that acknowledges that people who live in more rural and remote parts of the province need to be able to access healthcare services without being forced to travel unacceptably long distances. I mean, you know, we're very close here in downtown Toronto to, you know, well, Queen's Park is at the top of, you know, a whole row of hospitals and access to healthcare services. And so I think people who live in places like Toronto don't fully appreciate the lack of access that so many people who live in more rural and remote parts of the province experience. And on top of that, we've made a significant commitment to expanding family health teams and nurse practitioner-led clinics across the province, because we believe reforming primary health care is an important part of preventative measures to take pressure off of hospitals to ensure that people live healthier lives by having access to multidisciplinary and connected healthcare providers. And it's also why we're addressing things like the social and environmental determinants of health, ensuring that people have access to nature, ensuring people have access to green space, ensuring people are not forced to live in deep poverty, all has significant impacts on people's health and on the costs associated with the healthcare system. And if I could just really quick on education funding, because that hasn't come up if you don't mind, is rebalancing the funding formula for education as well, and in particularly ensuring that we take into account student needs, and that those schools that have a higher proportion of students with special needs, that's accounted for in the funding formula so they receive the proper financial resources they need.
A reminder to please use the raise hand function if you have a question. And it looks like there are no more questions. Back to you, Mike.
Well, I just want to thank everyone who are joining us in person and online today, and just to let those of you in the media know that we're always accessible and available to answer your questions. and to respond to any future questions you have related to our platform. And I just want to close by saying to the people of Ontario, you can vote for the Ontario you want. The Ontario Greens have a plan to build a caring society, connected communities, and ensure we have a climate-ready province. This province is uniquely positioned to be a global leader in the new climate economy. And if we follow the Ontario Greens pathway to crush climate pollution in this province, we will set ourselves up to be that global leader in the new climate economy, creating new career and better job opportunities for people in this province. And so this election, in this now or never moment, I'm asking you to support and elect Green MPPs across this province, because that's the leadership Ontario needs. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, everyone.